Now, next up, I'd like to welcome to the stage David P. Jacobs, CEO and Value Maximisation Specialist at Maxwell Consultancy. David is going to talk to us about supercharging business value, success, and ROI from IT and digital transformation, something he's called 70% fail to 70% succeed initiative. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much. Ooh, the lights are... Hello everybody. Now if you're interested in supercharging success rates and value and ROI, I can tell you you're in the right place. I'll do my best in 20 minutes. If you're not interested in that, I'm going to have a really tough time for the next 20 minutes, okay? Now let's have a look and see how we're doing, shall we? Have a look at this. You've all seen this and you know jolly well that if you Google it, you will get these numbers, and it is pretty well true. Now look, I've underlined expectations because in my view and experience, which does go quite a long way back, as you can see I'm quite an old personality, a lot of the problem or a lot of the challenge is expectations from those lovely people who run organisations and businesses. They just don't quite know what's going on the other side, although I don't like to talk about sides. I like to help everybody. I'll help you, I'll help you, I'll help you. I'm a bit of a business IT polyglot, and I've encapsulated my polymathic skills into this framework. Now let's keep going because I've got a lot to do. Yeah, so, but when they don't fail, whatever you think succeed and fail means, they struggle to get measurable benefit. And what I'm showing you here is a window into a way of getting a lot more benefit. And that's what we all go to work for, isn't it? You obviously may not be failing at that. I want to make sure. I want to make sure. And if you are not failing at 75%, can you come and have a word with me later? I'd like to have a chat with you. I could probably learn from you. Why has it been 70%? Lots of reasons, okay. But here's my reason, and this is a big one. There's been no specific, relentlessly value-focused method for the totality. What I'm talking about is fully inclusive. It will include business analysts using Babok, project managers using Prince, architects using TOGAF, business people, everybody. There's been no framework and set of structures around which everybody can collaborate and have fun, because that's important, and get lots of success out. It's all been rather fragmented. So, surprise, surprise, over a long period of time, I have developed this framework. I actually started putting it together in the early 1990s, and it's taken a very long time to kind of bring it to fruition. I'm pleased to say we're running courses now, and it's looking very, very interesting. A lot of words on here, but here's what I was saying. This framework is multilingual, multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-skilled. This old business IT gap thing, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, it's still going on in a lot of places. It's not a bipolar thing, right? It's a multifaceted situation. And if you've got someone, a business value maximisation specialist at the bottom there, in your organisation who can talk all the languages and understands most of the concepts, you're going to be really cooking. Right, come with me. Right, I haven't got time for too much fun. By the way, the money that you get when you go to work is not recompense, for your pain and suffering. It's sort of remuneration for the value that you can give to your clients, your citizens, your colleagues. That's how I like to see it. That was The Passenger by Iggy Pop. It's a good number, and it says we're going on a journey, which I'm going to try and take you on now. But we want drivers, not just passengers, okay? Oh, this is a bit of background on me. Yeah, you can see I am quite an old personality. But look, this is how I started off in marketing information. Now that is the business of using numbers to tell business stories. And I was doing this with my dad in his advertising consultancy in London in my teenage years, and sitting around talking with his partners and senior business executives who used to swear quite a bit, so I had to cover my ears. That got me off. I then come into IT, right? there's a 4-year overlap. Yeah, I had 4 years between 81 and 85 where I was like doing marketing information and programming. And look at this blue one. I wrote my first software, and half my head was market research officer, the other half of my head was programmer. The deputy MD phoned me up and said, "Thank you, David, you really helped the business." I thought that's what it was supposed to all be about back in the 1980s. I have kept developing that skill every day since then. And this is what I do now. This was quite interesting. In 2001, David Taylor, looking at the ridiculous amount of failure in the 1990s, said, "We obviously need a whole new approach." And I said to him by email or something, "Yeah, funny you should say that, David, but I've been doing that for over a decade." And here we are 24 years later. Well, I'm pleased to tell you we are running courses. This is rolling out. But my goodness me, if you've ever tried to market something like this, which you would think is what everybody wants and needs, as my partner said to me last week, it wouldn't take that long. However, we're rolling. Right, now these are the questions you might want to ask. If you want maximum value and success, and I blooming well do, right, who wouldn't? What do I need to do? Because you've got all this prints and there's a bit of Babcock and a bit of this and a bit of tech. Practically, what do I actually need to do? Oh yeah, and by the way, that's my little joke that. Don't ask what flavour of Agile and are we going to have stand-up meetings as your first question. Find out a bit about your environment first, okay? Now this is where it gets really serious, because I said to myself, I do not see out there in the industry answers to these questions. No, I do not. You might say, well, that's because you're an idiot, David, and if you want to tell me that, that's absolutely fine. I could not answer these, so I wrote all this down, and that's what this is about. And here's the difference. Everything we do, when I'm involved, or one of my team, or a business value maximisation specialist, is relentlessly focused on value from macro to micro, right the way through. Everything else, all the project management and the business analysis and the testing and the blah-de-blah-de-blah, is subservient to that. It's all important, but it is subservient, right? We're spinning it round. You wouldn't drive to work all the way in reverse, would you? You know, doing all this. So why does the IT industry do that? Sometimes reverse is perfectly valid, but most of the time you need to be driving forward. That's what this is doing. And there's the final set of questions. Are we going to be better off after doing all this work? How much are we going to be better off? Blah-de-blah. And by the way, my framework answers these questions pretty well. I haven't really got time to show you all the answers today because an overview of business value maximisation framework takes about an hour and a half. So in 20 minutes, forgive me, I'm just trying to give you something coherent to kind of, so you can see what's going on. Right, so what are the challenges? Well, this is what I was talking about, right? Look at that lot. Now they've all got to work together. How well do they work together? Not all that well. It's what I call the disparate set of disciplines. You need something that glues all this together. If it's like a jigsaw, there's pieces of the jigsaw missing to my way of thinking, i.e. value pieces, and then the pieces that are there don't quite fit together. So, yeah, I mean, I know this looks like a house. So there we go, look, there's a jigsaw on the left. This is some of the material we're producing for our course. And there's another way of looking at the same thing, a block of flats, right? If you haven't got good foundations, the foundations here, if you come on one of our courses or talk to me, are the fundamental principles of getting value and success for a business or an organisation from IT. Those principles, according to this, back in the 80s, 90s, were not easily apparent, which is why I defined them all. Let's keep rolling. Yeah, that's just to cheer you up. That's a little quote from me. If you know what you're dealing with, you can, in life and anywhere at work, you can do better. And this is the fact of where we are. It's tough. Now, let's start having a look at what's going on. IT on the right, real world on the left, okay? Black and white, digital, cut and dried, ones and zeros. Real world on the left, fuzzy colour. Oh, I don't know, I'm a human being, I'm not too sure, right? And that, you'll probably recognise those bits in the middle, right? Now look at this. This is what I want to show you. Have you ever seen two worlds that were as antithetic as those two sides? No wonder that this is a bit of a challenge, right? We've all been there. People not very pleased with the other department, or even worse. I'm going to show you some examples in a minute. Now, if you come on one of our courses, you will get, I just want to show you that this stuff exists, right? You'll get a lot more, and there's a lot more than this as well. And don't read this, it'll make your eyes go funny. Right, let's keep going. I was saying before about expectations, you see, we've had the most unbelievable last 35 years, you see that black line, the technology, the chips, everything, you know, the speed of this is incredible. The problem is, people who maybe are not so clued in expect the value, the success, the boost to their businesses and organisations to be on that curve, and it isn't, because we're still learning how to do that. I certainly am. We're young, we're only 50, 60, 70, 80 years old as an industry, so it's not surprising, is it? Something's got to be done. I call that the 1934 model, because when I started doing talks on this 20 years ago, I said, well, we're about where cars were in 1934, you know? They break down, they use a lot of petrol, they're not the cars that we've got now in 2025, which are fantastic, aren't they? We're not there yet with getting value. I'm not talking about hardware and some of the software layers. That is how you sort of navigate with steps in this curve, but I'm not going to do this. You get this if you come on one of our courses. Let's see what we're going to do here. We're going to have to collaborate, people. Who knows this? Let's work together. Right, haven't got time for that. Right. Keep an open mind, people. These are all true. Some of them are slightly apocryphal, but you've seen these quotes, and there's many of them. The amount of people in high places in any industry who said, oh no, you don't want to do that, that's a terrible idea. Oh no, that's going to work. Why would you want a telephone? Why would you want to, the world market is, don't you love this one? Ken Olsen, 1977, who was head of debt, right? Now I was on debt in the 70s, no, the 80s, sorry, but this is a man who ran Digital Equipment Corporation, VAX VMS. Anyone remember it? Bloody good mini computers they were. They knocked the socks off IBM. And the guy who's running the company says no one would want a computer in their home. Do you see what I'm saying? Let's keep our minds open. And if you want to talk to me, that would be great. But yeah. Okay. Oh, right, we're just getting going now. Who knows this one? Right, that's enough. Right, real work. Down, real work. So people say to me, well, David, what is value? Well, if you're asking me that, I'd be a little bit worried, actually, because, like I said, isn't that the whole reason that we all go to work and do all the different jobs that we do? But I've defined it here, just so we got some words, you know, meeting or hopefully even exceeding the goals, objectives, expectations, well, that's the dodgy one, I call them value-interested parties. I really don't like a lot of terms that are used in this industry, and I don't think they're very helpful. So if you come on one of our courses, you get a lot of slightly improved terms. I prefer to say value-interested parties, but this is what we're trying to get, right? Achievement against objectives. Now, here's the first model. This is one of our 100 models, okay? I haven't got time to show you many, but this tells you a lot. What is it that delivers value? It is what you will probably call the business process. I call it an organisational activity path. I.e., if you've got a fantastic car sitting on your front forecourt, most of that value, the functional value, is zero, right? When you start driving it to go and pick up your mum to take her shopping or go or do something, that's when the value happens. It's the same here, right? Now, it's not that there isn't any value down here. There's your IT working with human beings to help do that. These are important, but like I said before, this is a method where value and outcome is relentlessly driving the whole shooting match. That's called the the value delivery model. Right, how are we doing? Not too bad. Just look at that green column down the middle. Those are the fairly simplified ingredients of what I call the value cake. Business process, human interaction, IT functionality, IT technicality, miscellaneous, morale and all that stuff. If you've got a really gorgeous car, your neighbours might think, whoa, I wish I had one of those. So there is a bit of value in that. And cost, yeah? Now what we do later on, which I can't show you in detail today because I'm probably already pushing it a bit, is we put these into an equation and we use these variables in different ways. If you're baking a cake, you need to know, do I need fresh eggs or old eggs? How much flour do I need? How much sugar? Blah, de, blah, 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 blah. When you come and take that analogy here to getting value from IT, I didn't see these, you know, they're sort of floating around a bit, but then it's not crisply defined. The ingredients of the cake and the recipe steps, that's what my framework shows. Yeah, that's called VoIP. I just thought I'd put that on to really confuse you. Now this, we were looking at the value delivery model. That was at runtime, the model we were looking at before. When you want to design value, right, this is almost identical, it's just the other way up. You start with value and work out what processes you need and then go to IT. And if somebody held me down and sort of whacked me around the head with a cricket bat and said, but give me one fault the IT industry makes, I would say they do not run from their processes. They bring in some IT and hope for the best it's going to work, or even define their processes from the software. And that is a very dangerous thing to do. I'm not saying it won't work, it's very dangerous, and you're not going to get max value, which is what I want. Now I'm just showing you this, so again, if you came on one of our courses, this is a far more detailed version of what I just had up, right? And I'm not going to go into this. You'll see some terms there you will recognise, and you will see some other terms like non-contiguous overlay. What the heck is that? Well, if you come on one of the courses, I'll explain to you and why it helps get even more value. Peter Drucker, very famous business management guy. You can only manage, yeah, it's a good quote, isn't it? It's so blooming true. And people sort of say, oh, well, I can't really measure, and you know, I can't weigh up non-tangibles with tangibles and all that. Yes, you can actually. Remember I said I was in marketing information and research. Well, I've got ways of doing it. It's not perfect, what is in life, but I've got ways of doing it. So just summarising again this framework, it's a way of thinking and working that defines, we define, we identify, we assess value, we forecast, we track it, we monitor it, we boost it, and we keep boosting it. And it is the primary activity, not a subsidiary activity. Remember me talking about that green column with the ingredients? I'm looking at them another way here. This is just the start of the business value equation, and this is a verbal representation. The business gain or loss, i.e. value, you're going to get will tend to be proportional to the performance of your business processes, which I hope you will have reviewed at least or re-engineered at best, as helped or sadly so often hindered by IT functionality. It is the functionality of the IT system that helps you. All the IT technicality, layers and layers and layers and layers, is a Hertzberg hygiene. In other words, it has to blooming well work, otherwise the functionality cannot work with the human beings. When you understand these kind of relationships, it really starts helping. And we've got a numeric version of this, and you can start to see how these variables work on each other numerically. And if you start comparing that to how you're working, you will be able to come to some very useful conclusions. Here are two mini little case studies. The thing that kind of typifies both of these was there was a bit of a cultural, attitudinal problem, and there was also a bit of a project problem. In the first one, the billing manager thought her IT department was just about the worst in the world. And the amount of times I've gone in and said to people, your IT department is not the worst in the world, it is pretty good. Please understand that. Standing up for those poor ladies and gentlemen in IT who don't always seem to be very good sort of standing up for themselves because they're busy trying to fix things, you know. Anyway, I sorted her out very quickly. Oh, David, marvellous. Your value-based approach is value-based approach is a breath of fresh air. No hitches in implementation. Down there, I was asked to go and fix at a university the corporate IT department and the registry, all like this. Right, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. Right? The IT were going round trying to define the parameters for this system. I came in, I applied some of those layers of focus layers, layer cake layers and variables that I've just shown you, and I said, I mean, this is not revolutionary. Has anybody done a business process flow diagram here? No. Oh, crikey, right. Banged one out on one side of A4, 2 or 3 days working with a nice registry lady. I was able to deduce what the requirements were for IT. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. They wrote it, baff, all sorted out. These are just small examples. You can get a lot more. But right, somebody that I trained in this a couple of years ago, who I'm proud to say is now known as a BVMFer. Got to be careful how you say that, actually. She's a business value maximisation specialist at foundation level. I said, Elaine, give me a quote. She said, BVMF is extreme common sense. I wished I'd known about it years ago. God bless her, she's doing really, really well now. We're training more of these people. We've got a course on at the end of April in Hertfordshire. Yeah, this is me actually. I like this one because this is just logic. It's common sense. There's a bit of Socratic questioning and Aristotelian syllogism and stuff like that, but that's basically philosophical logic and information theory built in. Not going to read these out, but these are just a few of the USPs or differences between the way of working I'm telling you about here, ladies and gentlemen, and the way it is usually done in the world where we're all involved. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of USPs, and I can tell you this is probably barely half of them. So I'm not going to go through those, I'm afraid. But so if you come to our stand, we're on stand number 8 this afternoon, and have a chat, or if you've got a challenge that you don't think I've covered, which is more than likely, I'll see if I can give you some help. I think we've got some Q&A here in a minute. And that's me there, David J. I've got cards on my stand, okay, so you don't need to note this down. These slides will be up. I'm going to just finish up now for you fans of a bit of fun. Firstly, value maximisation, breaking out like a caged up animal with all us doing it, right? Here we go. All right, that's enough of that one. And then we're all working together. And finally, this is it. I'm going off after this one. I'm feeling slightly lonely, but hey, you know.
I'll come sit down with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, ask me some questions about that if you like, or tell you what, tell not me, but maybe all your colleagues here about some situations you've been in where maybe some of that attitude and approach would have got you out of trouble. Yeah, has anyone been in does anyone recognise those situations, madam? Do I need to hold it?
I think it
It sounds like everyone can hear me.
I know, it's pretty small rooms. So
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Gloria Marron. I'm from Sanofi Pharmaceutical. And my question is related to, you described very well sometimes you feel there are digital IT areas, speaking zeros and unos and black and white, and the business being very creative, trying to apply artificial intelligence and everything. So what should be your recommendation in order to close a gap or facilitate to work together speaking the same language?
Yeah, closing that very black and white and fuzzy colour gap, yeah. I hope I showed you a little bit, but if, I don't want to keep saying, if we get to talk more about it, in that framework, one of the key things I've done is, imagine you've got a Japanese person and a Danish person trying to talk to each other, right? The Japanese person wouldn't learn Danish and the Danish person wouldn't learn Japanese. You know what they do? They use an intermediate language, English. Now what I've done here is I've taken that quite a few stages further, i.e. it's not one intermediate language to get between business and IT. There's a whole sort of set of them, like layers of a layer cake that I was showing, and those I've kind of defined what they are and how to speak them. And if you have these structures and everyone's kind of been a little bit trained up in where the value is, that understanding starts to flow a lot better. I mean, I happen to have been in just about every area of this whole landscape, but we can teach it depending on your level of professional maturity and your age and your career. I think the older you are or the further in your career, the more we can teach it. But even to younger people, a lot of it's attitude. I mean, I've worked as a business analyst. I'll stop in a minute. I've worked as a business analyst, and I've heard my colleagues saying things like, "Oh, the business never knows what it needs," and I go, I actually saw someone say that on YouTube video the other day, and I nearly had a go at him. Isn't it our job to help them if they don't know what they need? It's not a blame game, is it? We're all involved in this. It's flipping difficult, so let's all work together. If you'd like to know more about what those layers are and all that, just give me a shout. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Any other questions? I know I'm mid pouring water, but do you see one? Yeah. Right.
Come on, who's got a question for Rachel? She did a brilliant presentation there.
May I ask a quick question? Thank you, David. It was very entertaining. I'm not a geek, I'm not a tech person. You said logic, not magic, and you also intimated that our return of investment is the king. But increasingly, in a world where ESG is being dismantled, DEI is being dismantled, in the earlier session we looked at how different platforms of AI, when they fuse together, say health might have a different standards, whereas finance will have a different standards. How do we ensure, given this breakneck speed towards AI nirvana, that humanity becomes a centre of values and not finance and ROI, which for one, I get that. Economics is a very important driver, but how do we ensure humanity is the centre of technological breakthroughs and values? Hope that makes sense. I mean, you mentioned Herzberg. I don't know if it's the same as Maslow. So we've got the hierarchy of needs. We've got, we need food, nutrition, work, self-actualization. But we are missing a piece right at the top. Consciousness, conscious response to what the challenges of the world are. I'm on the same page. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I would say that IT and all that stuff, which a lot of it is pretty fantastic these days and a lot of it isn't, but is there to help us as human beings, not the other way round. And maybe some people don't quite get that, or even if they do get it, they're caught up in this sort of treadmill that you're talking about. Would this help? I think it would, but I don't want to keep ramming that down people's throats. As soon as I've stood up and tried to make people aware that I have this available and even offered them, say, a free license, and they start accusing me of trying to screw a lot of money out of them, and I think that's a bit of a sad reflection on society. I'm a tiny little bit left of centre, surprise, surprise, and I would like to see everybody giving value to everybody else. That was slightly on the edge of your question. Let's have a chat later. I'll try and give you a better answer, but I think people have just got to really realise that it's all there to help us and not the other way round. That's what I would say at the top of that.
Got another question right in the centre there. I don't know if there's a mic that can reach.
I can shout if that's...
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
The question primarily for Rachel. I'm sure we've all got our own political opinions of Elon Musk, but aside from that, what he has been doing with the Department of Government Efficiency, so, I was interested to find out that he's using AI to examine the contracts behind a lot of the waste that he's uncovered, and to examine the documentation and digital trail behind those to reveal redundancy, duplication, inconsistency, and things not for legacy, things not being fit for purpose, which all seem to relate to public organisations who I imagine are all sitting on a more imperfect legacy than they'd like to have, and it kind of combines both your approaches, which is what are we here to do, and how do we really can we use AI to dig down as deep as possible to find out if we're really doing it. So your systems are looking at a lot of data, but
Yes, so there's a lot of data, there's too much data, even for AI. Every single process of every single government agency and corporate will incorporate AI at some point very soon if they don't already. So all of the stuff, a lot of AI is looking at the stuff to say, are there efficiencies here to be gained? Is there process compliance? Is there not? Like, what can we discern from this information? So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that the AI is only looking at stuff that could be a valid answer to the question. We don't want it looking at stuff that's 19 years old, that is for a function that we don't do in the business anymore. So when we start to roll this stuff out, we need to make sure we're pointing it in the right direction. That's the start of the pipeline. The outcome then is a decision, and your appetite and your risk appetite for trust in your AI is what determines what kind of AI you can use to reach that decision. So with Horizon and with the robo-debt scandal in Australia, they used automated decision making to go and do what you said, to go and look for efficiencies. And then they emailed out in Australia thousands of letters to people, pensioners, to say you owe the government tens of thousands of dollars. And that caused enormous harm and distress because that was not true in many of those cases. The algorithm was wrong. But there was no way to contest, and that's the same thing with the Horizon scandal here. People would say, but I didn't steal, and they would say, well, prove it, because the computer says you did. So when you have outcomes like that that can cause harm and be high risk, this is something Elon Musk is not too concerned about right now, but the UK government definitely is. If the outcome of the decision, if it were wrong, could cause significant harm, you have to be able to explain how you got there, so that people can argue it in a transparent way that humans can understand. So that's why you need to think about what kind of AI we're running. You can run obfuscated AI, but if someone has to assure that before the decision gets sent, and you have to go back and look at all the documents yourself anyway to prove that it's correct, you haven't even saved any time. So thinking about which kind of AI, number one, and what kind of data you run it across, number two, is how to actually get benefit out of this new technology rather than just wiring yourself in more problems.
Very interesting response about that. You actually need to get the value at the end of it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? We've got one right at the front.
I'll try to speak loudly. For Rachel, you talked about discovering data in documents, etc. Can you also discover data in case management systems? And my second question is, if you're doing all this discovery, can you do analysis?
Yes, we do lots of case management systems and legal matters management systems as well. A lot of your information is in systems like that. There might be attachments in the file share that belong to the case that's managed in the case management system, but the story is in lots of places. So what we create is something called a virtual record, which is to say, okay, assemble me an aggregation of everything related to this case, or this matter, or this customer, or this asset, or this address. If it's in someone's email, document, the case management system, a legacy system, Lotus Notes files that we can't even open anymore, anywhere it is in the network, bring it together for me in one pane of glass, and yes, analyse it, and tell me, is there sensitive stuff in here? Is there risk? Can I share this externally? Do I have to destroy this? How long does it need to be kept? And what is it about, just generally? Because once we know what it's all about, yes, we can manage that risk, which is super important, and you have an obligation to do that. But also we can take advantage of opportunity. We can reuse that information. We can get insights. We can do big data analysis because we understand the quality. So hopefully that answers both those questions in one.
My question on analysis is more about, can you aggregate the data and then draw inferences? So for instance, if you've got 20,000 people you've got this data for, can you infer things from the discovery you've done?
Yes, we certainly can. And that's the 2 or 3 trillion bits of information that we mentioned. We have all of that stuff. What you want to discern from that is really up to you. All the APIs are open, so you can feed it into another system that you want to. But the question is then, does that inference need to be evidenced? And that's where we really help, because we'll show exactly why a certain document flagged against this certain kind of topic or focus.
Okay, great. That's all we have time for at the moment. Thank you both for coming on stage and answering those questions. We'll now welcome you to go into the lounge, talk to more people. Oh, there you go, now it's working. And grab some lunch. So enjoy your lunch break and be back for 1:30 for the afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thanks.